Here are the supplies we need to do our zipper pouch. We need battleizer in your hoop. We need 2 pieces of fabric, one for the front, one for the back, because we're going to sew 2 files. We need water-soluble thread, and we need quilting thread. Step 1 is to stitch the placement stitch. Step 2 is to place your zipper pouch fabric directly over the placement stitch, keeping it centered, and I'm using water-soluble thread to tack it down. The third and last step is to switch out to my quilting thread and do the quilting. The last step to putting together our little zipper pouch is the zipper file. So you will need a hoop with water-soluble stabilizer in it. You're going to need the zipper that you've prepared for the size block that you're doing. You will need your 2 embroidered zipper block files for the front and the back of the outside of your zipper pouch. And you will need 2 pieces of lining. The thread I'm going to use is the same quilting thread that I use to quilt my block, so it'll match when it's all finished. So the first step in the zipper file is to stitch a placement stitch onto your water-soluble stabilizer. I did switch out to black so it could be seen on camera, but you could just use whatever thread you wanted to use, like I was going to use my quilting thread. So we have black so we can see it. Then we'll take our zipper that we prepared earlier, and I like to use a little bit of glue stick, Fons and Porter, or there's other brands out there, and I'll just run a little bit of glue on either side of that placement stitch. And I will place my zipper inside the placement stitch. It's going to tack down this side first, so I'm going to be concerned about keeping the edge of that zipper tape right even with that placement stitch, just like that. So now we'll take it over to the machine. I'm going to change my thread. Again, I'm not going to use black for this. I will put this color thread in, and it's going to stitch a tack down right along here. Then it's going to come this way and stitch it this way. So what we need to do is pull our zipper tab. I pull it about 3/4 of the way down, and then as the machine stitches about halfway, I stop the machine manually, and I take my zipper and I zip it up to the top, and I let the machine continue. So it'll stop down here, come back over here, and it'll start stitching this way. About halfway through, I'll stop the machine again, pull my zipper tab back down, and let it continue. So let's go ahead and do that. So our next step is to actually take the hoop off of the machine, and we're going to place the lining under the hoop underneath the hoop, and we'll place the block on top of the hoop. But I like to put a pin to where my needle is pointing next. And if you look, if I put my needle down, this is where the seam will be on this side of the zipper. So I'm going to put a pin over here, and that's just going to help me in my orientation when I go ahead and put the lining on the back. So my hoop is off the machine. I'm going to flip it over, and now I will place the lining on the back side of the hoop. And my pin is over here, which means it's going to stitch on this side. So that's why the pin is there, to help me figure out which side to put this on. So this is my lining. I will place it right side down. I will center it, so I have the same amount of space at the top and at the bottom. And I will put my raw edge of my lining right up to that basting stitch where the edge of my zipper tape is. And that's where it's going to go. I'll take my glue stick and I'll just run a little bit of glue right within that seam allowance to hold it in place. And put a little at the ends as well. And that'll hold it in place for when I flip it over. I also put a little bit, this is the edge of my hoop. You can see it through my stabilizer. My hoop is right there. So I'm just going to put a little dab on the stabilizer. I'm not putting it on my hoop. And just kind of hold that in place so that when I flip it over, it doesn't move on me. So now we can see through that, which is really handy. So it's going to stitch right here, and I'll take one of my quilt blocks that I've stitched previously. This would be the outside, and I'm going to put this right side down. I'm going to make sure my zipper pull is about 3/4 of the way down, and I will center that right over my zipper, keeping it centered within my zipper area. And I could even just put a little bit of glue there as well to kind of hold it till I get it to the machine. Put the raw edge right next to the black stitching line from my placement stitch. And now we'll take this over to the machine and we're going to stitch this seam. This pin right here, I do like to move it. I like to put it about where my zipper pull is, which is about right here. It's just a little reminder so that when I get down there, my machine is stitching along, I'm going to stop it about halfway, flip this up, pull my zipper pull out of the way, and continue sewing. So I've lowered my needle right where the sewing is going to start, and it's actually on the corner of my little block there. So that's how you can get it lined up. So I'm going to let it stitch about halfway down. I'll stop the machine manually. I'll flip it up and move my zipper pull, and then continue sewing. So we just completed that sewing. So now we're going to actually flip my hoop over. And my lining fabric, I'm going to pull the glue off right here. Give it a little finger press. I'm going to take my glue stick again, and I'm going to glue my lining only to the stabilizer. I'm not gluing my hoop over here. Just keep it nice and taut so that when I flip it back over, my lining will stay out of the way. Then we flip our quilt block over, and we just give it a little bit of finger press. We're going to move the zipper pull down, because now when I go back onto the machine, it's going to do a top stitch right along this folded edge. So we'll come halfway down, we'll stop the machine, we'll move the zipper pull out of the way and stitch the rest of the way to the bottom of the block. So I'm all top stitch, and I did put a pin up here to help me when I flip my hoop over so I know where I'm at, because the next step will be to stitch this side, or this side of the block, exactly the same way we did this one. So here we are at my table again. I'm going to flip my hoop over, and then you can see this is my lining, and here's my pin. So now I will take the next piece of lining and I'll put it right side down. I'm going to pretty much line it up top and bottom with my other side and keep my raw edge right next to that basting line. Again, I'll put just a little bit of glue in there just to hold it in place. And because I don't want to glue this side to anything, I'm just going to pin the two together just to kind of keep them out of the way. I'll just put a couple of pins. I think I'll put it on this side so I can pull them out once I get it on the machine. Then we'll flip this over so you can see my lining through here. And I will take my second quilt block and I will put that right side down, aligning all those edges again. And we'll take this over to the machine and do our seam. So I'm at the machine and I'm making sure that my lining is where it's supposed to be. It's really kind of nice. You can see right through the stabilizer. I did remove those pins I put in there just because I didn't want them dragging on the base of my machine. I'm going to pull my zipper tab about almost to the bottom. I'm going to put a pin where it is to remind me. And then I will take my other side of my bag and place it right side down. And again, when I lower my needle, it's going to go right to the edge of that corner of my block on my battleizer. So that's kind of where I want to start. So I'll go ahead and start stitching. I will stop halfway down, reach inside, take my zipper, pull it all the way to the top, and then I can line up the rest of my block and continue stitching. I'm here at my table again. This is just how it came off the hoop. Look how cool that is. So we're going to flip the block over again, take one of my linings, open it out, a little bit of glue stick. I'm going to temporarily hold it to the edge of my hoop, and I'm only gluing the stabilizer. I am not gluing the actual hoop. I'll make sure this one is also attached the same way. So now I can flip it over and kind of control it a little bit better, and you can see it is underneath. This one will open out, and we're going to take it back to the machine. I'm going to unzip my pull again. The machine's going to start up here, and it's going to stitch a top stitch just like it did over here. When I get halfway down, we'll zip up the tab and continue stitching. Time to remove our zipper pouch from our hoop. So what I like to do is turn it over, and you can see the nice top stitching right here. The first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and cut through the water-soluble stabilizer. I'm using my little HoopSisters mini, and I want to get my blade in between the stabilizer and the zipper tape. Don't want to cut the zipper tape. So there we are. And I'll just run that right along. Just going to remove the stabilizer under the zipper. And I'll do the same thing on this side. So that exposed our zipper. And then we can peel these back. And we can cut away the stabilizer right up to that basting stitch. And I will do the same thing over here. There we go. So here is our completely done in the hoop zipper pouch, except for the side seam. So now we're going to go ahead to the machine and we'll talk about putting this together and finishing it up. So before we completely sew it all together, I like to lay it all nice and flat on my cutting table. Make sure everything is smoothed out. And the lining is going to be a little bit bigger than the actual zipper pouch. So we're just going to even up all of those edges. Just make them even with your block. Last step is to sew this together on our sewing machine. And the best tip I have for you is to unzip your zipper, because when we're completely finished, we need to turn it right side out. First, what we'll do is we'll take our machine embroidered blocks and we'll just pick them up like this, leaving our lining laying flat on the table, and we will put them right sides together. And we're going to go ahead and pin these just like we would any HoopSisters quilt block. We'll match up our points on the corner. Match up a few points along the bottom edge. This will be the very bottom of our zipper pouch that I'm pinning right now. So I've got that pinned. We'll also pin the sides. And what we'll do here at the where the zipper is, we're just going to put them right sides together, just like that. And I'll find a match. There's a match point right there I'm going to do with my quilting. And then I'll pin this side the same way. We'll just keep these edges right here even. So that's pinned, and now we'll just keep this nice and flat, and we'll line up our corners right down here at the bottom. Pin up the side seams. Same thing on the other side. I'm leaving this open down here for turning. So at my sewing machine, I'm going to start right here. I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to follow along on my basting line, which is going to be about a 1/4 inch, pivot at the corner, come down to this corner, pivot again, come straight across and stop right there. And I'll come back and show you what that looks like. So I've stitched around my zipper pouch, and the last step, this big opening right here, I like to take this seam allowance right here, turn it right next to my stitching, right over by my stitching line. Same thing here. And what we're going to do is start here, and instead of a 1/4 inch seam allowance, we're going to stitch in a 3/8 inch seam allowance, because if we make this lining just a little shorter than the bag, it'll fit nicely inside the bag once it's turned. So we're going to do a 3/4 or 3/8 inch seam allowance, and we're going to start here, stop here and backstitch, start here and backstitch, and stop here and backstitch, and we'll leave this opening for turning. So here's my stitched bottom edge of my lining with my opening to turn it. And now we're ready to clip some corners. So I'm going to go ahead and just clip off the corners of my outer bag just to reduce the bulk. And then we will reach inside and grab the corner of my outside bag, tuck it in with my fingers, and start pulling it through. And then what we'll do is we'll tuck in our lining opening and do a little edge stitch to close that up, and I'll be right back with that. So my little opening is stitched closed, so now I can tuck it all inside my zipper bag. And because I made that bottom seam allowance just a little bit shorter, it's going to lay nice and flat inside there. So these little corners here where the ends of our zippers are, you can reach inside and pop those out with your fingers. They should pop out pretty nice. There we go, just like that. And I will take this over to the iron, give it a final press, and come back and show you the results. Here's my set of 3 zipper pouches: my large pouch, my medium pouch, and my small. Adorable.